Hey everyone, welcome to the first ever podcast of The Common Tangent. I'm RJ, and I'm just one of those three hosts. You'll be steering this ship together. We're doing this as a trio, bringing three different lives together to find where our paths cross. You might be wondering about the name. In the math world, a common tangent is a line that connects two separate circles at once. But for us, it's about the feeling of sitting around a campfire or sitting at that corner bar that we used to sit back in the day. That moment conversation takes off where you're venting, laughing, or even realizing you're all on the same page. We're here to take you on a journey through those moments and so much more. I'm thrilled to be building this alongside two incredible people. Joining me today are my co-hosts and partners in this journey that we're taking. First off, let me go ahead and introduce you to Soulskynn. Soul, hi, by the way.
Why'd I get nervous?
Hi, by the way. Welcome.
Hi!
So that's Soulskynn, and then let's go ahead and introduce you to Anikailani. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, hello.
I mean, we have some great hosts, and I can't wait to share these guys with you. But for our first episode, we're going to be talking about our debut. We wanted to start at the very beginning. Before we get into a deep rant of the wild stories that we have for you in the upcoming episodes that we have, we want to talk about the power of introductions. Why we do them? Why is the first hello so important when you're building a connection or starting a conversation? Today is about introducing ourselves to you, but also in exploring why an introduction is the foundation for every common tangent that follows. All right, what I want to start with today is introductions of the hosts. That's our power of introductions that we have for this a common tangent we have for today. What I want to do is get to know the folks that we have here right on the podcast. We have three great hosts, and we want to start with. I'll just start with alphabetical order. Annie, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, my name is Aniel, aka Anikailani. Everybody calls me Annie because it's easier. I am Chaos and Fae Incarnate. I am a Oracle reader, holistic health practitioner, and mental coach, basically. Mindset coach in terms of getting rid of limiting belief systems. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to do this with you guys.
That's awesome. Soul, go right ahead.
Hi, I'm Soulskynn. I am a full-time veterinary surgical assistant by day, a full-time mother to a carbon copy of myself, which has been an interesting adventure in itself. And I am currently dabbling in the content creator platforms, figuring out kind of where I fit in that. And this podcast is part of that adventure. I'm excited to do this with Annie and Liquid Music. Just sit down and have some fun. We have a great time when we get together, and we can just talk about any topic for any reason and just go on and on about it and have a great time together.
I agree. When we sat down for the first time and actually met each other for the first time at TwitchCon, introductions were great because we knew each other, and it was a little bit easier. I mean, a little bit more like, oh, hi, give a hug, kind of like, oh, hi, how you doing? It's easy to make those introductions on that. So let's try to explain the introductions and why it's so important to introduce yourself to maybe people you don't know, how to network with somebody that you don't know at TwitchCon. Let's start with that.
Whenever I introduce myself to people I'm familiar with, it's definitely a lot easier because of you're familiar with somebody, you kind of have a better understanding of how someone might respond to you. There's a little bit more of a warmer tone versus someone that you don't know, or it can feel very superficial. A little bit of stats here. The brain, specifically the amygdala, evaluates new people in as little as 1/10 of a second, often before logical thought can take over. Roughly, there's something called the 7-11 rule, which says within the first 7 seconds, people form 11 key impressions about a stranger. I find that fascinating because of things being so sort of baseline. So whenever I try to introduce myself to people I don't know, typically I try to warm it up by introducing myself by name and maybe a little bit about myself in terms of what I do. And I think that actually makes introductions a lot more powerful and better versus, say, something that was brought up at TwitchCon whenever we talked to an employee there who worked in the Hollywood sphere previously and mentioned how transactional interactions tended to be because people would lead by saying, "Hey, I do this. What do you do?" First impressions for me are very powerful and can kind of go either way. Really depends.
I know Soul had a totally different experience while she was at TwitchCon. I mean, I would love to hear that kind of story of how that developed and with the power of introductions for those that, maybe like you didn't know, it made it a little bit different for you as well, doesn't it?
It did. TwitchCon was definitely a different experience than I had planned it to be. I went to TwitchCon having applied for partner and not heard that I had been approved or denied. During the opening ceremony, they did this whole little charade of we want to show a clip type deal. And I ended up getting partnered by Dan Clancy on stage at TwitchCon, which made me a very, very recognizable face at TwitchCon. So there weren't just the people I was going there expecting to meet, the ones I knew who I was excited to meet, like Tatsuya, who I screamed and got excited and left the line to get my badge.
I was right next to you too. I remember that octave. When you did that, yeah, I do remember that.
Yep, that was a special octave. I ran over to her. I gave her a hug, crying, all excited. She was crying. And then there's the flip side of it. After the ceremony, there were a few times, I was walking around by myself or with Aunt or the group we had, and somebody would come up and introduce themselves and say hello. And it'd be like, "Hi, it's nice to meet you. You know me, but I don't know you." So I'm very shy, and the introduction ended up being a little bit awkward because I was very overwhelmed. I didn't know what to do. I think without having that recognizability, I wouldn't have met as many people as I did and had as great of an experience as I had.
I mean, you weren't even just recognizable just because of the opening ceremony. They had throughout the entire weekend, they had you as a video of getting partner of playing over and over and all the entire weekend too. So, I mean, if they didn't see the opening ceremony, they definitely saw your face around on the video screens all over the place too.
So I'm going to cycle back for a second there because Liquid, you talked about Soul having a reaction to meeting Tetsuya, which I'll share my story with her in a minute. The fact that you mentioned that there was like an octave change, did it sound something like this?
Something like that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, it was, I do remember because it's always the first day. Like some of us have got experience of getting there like a few days before or like staying one day afterwards so you can spend time with the people that have met something to you throughout the weekend or even knew you throughout the past few years as a streamer. But with that octave hitting that, I mean, like when you hit those people and you're like, them and the first time you see them and all that kind of stuff, it does make it easier. But like that anxiety and that fear, or some people would call it fear, but some people might have that like shyness of that. Like, how do you, because the TwitchCon, when you're a partner, you have an exclusive area that only partners can go to. I say that as sarcasm, but it's really cool that you guys get to go to do that. Like when you go in there and you see all these, I'd say popular streamers and people that are partners, like, is it easier for you to be in that situation to talk to those folks, or do you feel like it's hard to approach those folks while you're in that room?
The simple answer, that was really hard. There were some of the classes, I call them classes, they weren't called that. I can't think off the top of my head what they were actually called. I would go there. Yes, panels. Thank you very much. There were some of the panels I would go with Arrow Garfield or with Super. Other times I went to a couple by myself, and there were other streamers there who were partners who I actually watch and like gently engage in their stream because I still am shy, even if I am behind my monitor. They were so excited for me, congratulated me, and invited me to sit with them that it took the stress and the anxiety off of doing something new, something unexpected, and doing it by myself, because I don't like to do things by myself. I'm a very social codependent person.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, it's so wild to think about the different experiences that one can have just in introductions alone, especially in one event. Just throwing this out there as a caveat for listeners too, while we are in the content creation field, this is we are using this to try to talk about other things away from that because of the idea of the power of introduction. This is one of the best examples that we have. So
Yeah.
just wanted to toss that out there too.
I mean, we all have the
But
experience of like new jobs and not just Twitch, but like getting a new job or like for you, like when you go around and like do readings and stuff like that, you talk to people for the first time. That's kind of a similar experience. And like, how do you talk to those folks for the very first time and feel comfortable doing it?
the short answer is I'm not really there.
That's true, I guess.
Because I kind of get into this flow state whenever I'm in that energy. And I partially attribute it to the fact that I know a lot of the people that are there, the owners that actually run the events. I go to most of the events that they host. And so I know basically all the readers. I know basically all of the merchants that go to all the other different events. And so it's just very warm and familiar to me. Whenever somebody else comes in, I'm already in that sort of flow state / comfort that I could just talk to people the way that I talk to you guys. And then whenever the cards take over, then that's a completely different experience in and of itself. But yeah, that's pretty much my experience.
I'd like to touch on that a little bit too. With being a surgeon's assistant, I every day have conversations with strangers left and right when we meet them for their animals to come in and get care from us. I'm very confident in that. And I don't know if it's because I'm just going to have this one interaction with them and not see them again, or if it's because I'm very confident in my job and I love my job and I want them to have the best experience. It's a very different feeling of doing the introductions at work versus doing the introductions even in my stream on this podcast or out in public. Each one has its own effect on me, just depending on where I am.
Yeah, like the knowledge of what you're talking about versus going in blind and talking about something that you don't know of. Of course, that's going to bring in some anxiety as well. That's self-explanatory. But for those that need to go into situations, and like I said, the power of introduction to go into somewhere, like I'll use a few streamers that might be brand new. Like it's easy to say, hi, how are you in a chat, but in person, I think we're losing that aspect because of the internet and all that kind of stuff. So if you're going to go introduce yourself to like, say a new job interview, how do you get past that anxiety? How do you get past that to sell yourself? And I think that's going to be the trick of the trade here that we need to try to explain to people, that it's okay to be able to sit there and go, okay, let's talk about myself. It's okay to talk about myself because this is how, I maybe get hired for a job, or how I introduce myself as a streamer, or so on and so forth. I really love thinking about how the introduction happens, but how everybody's situation is different, of course. And I think that's where we're at right now, talking about like, it's okay to go into a situation that's different, and how do you handle that?
To add to that as well, we're all relearning social skills, not even gonna lie. COVID, when the world shut down, that I feel like really hammered home the effect of active human interaction, like face-to-face interaction. So telling on myself a little bit, because I didn't say this before, but I'm a licensed practical nurse by day. And so a lot of my job is front facing. But whenever COVID happened, it almost felt like once things started trying to return to normal, that we were having to relearn the art of socializing, or the way I say it is the art of peopling.
Yes.
I feel like we still haven't recovered.
No, I mean, and things change too. I mean, like generations change. Like I get to the point where I feel like I grew up in like bars. I used to DJ for bars, karaoke, and all that kind of stuff. So it's easy to see people and talk to people, but that's not common for people to go to bars and just hang out anymore.
I didn't do that before COVID. I am too shy for that. I think I would have died.
Like just going out for like to have a drink with your like friends or something?
To go out with my friends, yes, but it would have to be my small friend group that I
Right.
went out with. Part of that had to do with the identity switch that I went through from high school to becoming an adult when I moved out. In high school, I was very comfortable with who I was and my identity, and I wanted to know everybody and I wanted to hang out with everybody. I was in a small homeschool, very sheltered Christian group. So it was all safe and everybody believed the same thing and knew the same thing and was on the same lines of everything. I moved out and I stepped into the real world where everybody has different opinions and ideals and all of that. I just didn't know who I was. So going out with friends was far and few between, and I never went out by myself.
I think,
Never, 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 never.
I mean, I don't remember just going to a bar just to have a drink by myself either. And there's people out there that will go out to a restaurant just to have a dinner by themselves at a table and do that. And that's fair, whatever. So like, and I like that you brought that up because the evolution has changed too. And COVID and all that kind of stuff does have an effect on the peopling, is what Annie would say. When we're talking about that kind of stuff, like what does that evolution look like? How did you learn to be better at it now than you were back then? Or how did it maybe change? Because that changes a little bit for me too. Because I've been in the radio business for a long time. I had to meet like people all the time. Like when you sit there at like a music concert and you're sitting there with a microphone going live, yeah, a bunch of people will find you and talk to you, and like I have no idea who you are, and just fans of the station that you're working in. So you just kind of like have to talk and represent. But how does that evolution happen for you guys? Like Soul, just what kind of the change for that? How does time change for you, Annie?
Pretty similar to what Soul had talked about in terms of the identity switch between being at home and then being out on her own as an adult. I had similar experience. I've had multiple experiences, I should say. But the first one really hammered was between high school and college. High school, I knew everybody, but not everybody knew me. And I loved that feeling of anonymity, especially just for the sake of walking in or walking down a hallway, waving to someone that I recognized, and they have that moment where they wave back to be polite, but you could just see the confusion on their face, like, who the heck is this person that just, said hi to me? But then going to college, and I went to a military school, the first year, socialization was basically non-existent because it worked very similar to boot camp. But once I got to roughly sophomore year, then I recognized I was a lot more withdrawn. So it was very fascinating to see that switch for me. And then also recognizing the differences between sophomore year and junior year, because sophomore year, I knew a little bit, or I knew some people, but not everybody knew me. And then by junior year, everybody knew me or knew of me. Even freshmen that I was meeting for the first time knew of me somehow. And I'm sitting here like, okay, wait, how do you know me? You are new. I've never met you before. How do you know me?
I love that.
And it was really interesting because it freaked me out a little bit, to be perfectly honest. The evolution definitely came about with different circumstances in my life. And some of them were gentle evolutions, and then some of them were kind of forced. It really just depends on the situation and the person involved. And for me, it was just a giant ball of everything.
I totally understand that. When we're talking, like, what I'm picking up here is, and I don't know if anybody is new in this or not, like, we all seem to have different experiences of what we've gone through and like where we're at today. The things that we do have in common are like we all have some type of military experience. I've been in the Air Force for a long time. You were in the military. Obviously, Soul was a military wife. How did that military wife experience change that perspective of talking to people and being able to associate with those folks as well?
That was another area where my identity, I was very comfortable in it, very confident. I could go to any military spouse event, any mommy and me event, any ceremony, a luncheon, anything. I was comfortable. I could introduce myself. I would go find the shy people, introduce myself, bring them over to meet everybody else. I was confident in that era.
So now that like being in confidence on that, we're talking about evolution. Like, how does that change now that you're not in that role?
That's a very good question. After I got divorced, I had lost that identity and I actually became a recluse because I got divorced in November and then that following February, March, COVID hit. I was still considered an essential worker in the job I was at. So I still had to go to work every day. So I'm not sure that I had the same transition everybody else did because I was determined at that time to be a light in somebody's life because it was a very dark, heavy time for the world. And it was just the littlest, tiniest piece of interaction that I could have. It was just different, but I did lose my identity a lot. And if I wasn't at work, I was at home being a mom, taking care of my house, talking to my best friend who ended up being my current partner in life on the phone all the time. And that was just about it. I kind of didn't know who I was or where I was going or what was happening.
And the good news is that you found a different way of doing it, which is great. And that's what I kind of like what we're kind of talking about there and kind of the future podcasts that we're talking about too. Like we're sitting here setting up a brand new podcast for everybody to be able to talk about the experiences that we have. Yeah, this podcast is about introductions. We have a few more great ideas coming up in the future as well about things like that. And we talk about how we sit around the table or sit around that I say at the bar scene, and I know we just kind of talked about our different experiences at bars, but like here's three friends just sitting at a bar, just having a drink and having a great time with that too. With all the introductions that we've done, what I want to do now is actually talk about the setup of the podcast for everybody to understand what we're kind of looking at and what we're kind of setting up here. In a few minutes, we'll show you the segments that we've kind of came up with for our own a little fun for the podcast so you guys can enjoy some stuff. So let's talk about, since we go in order here, Annie, you'll be up first here in just a minute, and we'll go to your what we like to call Fae forecast. You want to explain what a Fae is and how you came up with what the Fae forecast is?
What a Fae is, it really depends on your definition. By mythology, people typically think of fairies, Oberon, Titania, all that stuff. I kind of try to embody that as a light for people. The Fae forecast is my way of tying that light and Fae nature with my mindset coaching / life coaching and my tarot and oracle readings. And what the Fae forecast overall is it's basically just what it sounds like, a forecast of the month ahead, typically, of the general theme. I draw a card and it gives a general theme for the month. I lean into it with the reading and maybe even give a little bit of sage advice based off of my own experiences and the stuff that I've learned through my coaching. Whenever I'm not doing the forecast in that way, it typically is more of a conversational piece where I share some of my experience based off of the theme for the month in general. I came up with it because I really didn't know exactly what else to do.
No, I mean, you lean with your strengths. That's how I see it too. And to transition from the fake forecast to what I like to call the guess the press is that the press and the news out there is so heavy and so involved and it's so in your face. I decided I wanted to make a game of it, to take that heaviness and find the funny and find the games within the press. And I'll take some headlines and do whatever. I just wanted to have some fun and make a little light entertainment of the press versus being so like, oh, I don't want to listen to this. Oh, I don't want to know any of this. So I want to find some things that are funny and try to have a little bit of fun. So that's kind of like my Guess the Press segment here. And then we'll lean from the Guess the Press to the bright side with Soul. So Soul, why don't we explain why you decided to do that and what to look forward to?
The bright side is a little space and corner to just pause and breathe. It, like RJ was saying, it is such a heavy world and we're constantly bombarded with the downside of things, the negativity, sadness. And I want to bring a little bit of light, a little bit of sunshine to counteract that and balance that. Maybe bring a little bit of hope, a little bit of joy to people's days, their week, month, whenever they're able to listen to it and hang out with us. But yeah, that was the thought, was to just bring the bright side in a world that's so heavy.
Well, now that we have all those explanations of what you're about to hear, let's go ahead and just kick it off, I guess. Let's go ahead and go check in with Annie on the Faith Forecast.
Hello and happy time zone, friends. Welcome to the Fae Forecast. I'm your host, Anikailani, your resident Fae incarnate. I'm an oracle and holistic health practitioner here to bring you your fortune forecast for the month and give you a little advice on being your most authentic self to make the most of your forecast. That said, let's get into it. Today I am currently using the Mother Mort's Carnival 1897 Oracle deck, and your forecast is Arsenic Jane. Arsenic Jane represents you on a journey through life, a personification of every human on our walk from childhood to death. Drawing Arsenic Jane represents a fresh beginning. Your situation has been difficult recently, but the struggles you've faced haven't eaten away at your inner child. This card provides encouragement that you care for your inner child. You will emerge as a stronger individual. No matter what happens at the end of your story, you can make a positive impact around you by cultivating your sense of childlike joy. Friends, this message is all about beginnings. It's talking about going back into the beginner mind and acknowledging and enjoying and experiencing your inner child. So the question here becomes, what's your inner child telling you? Is it warning you of something? Or is it just, they just want you to listen? Our inner child is by far one of the greatest tools that we have in terms of authenticity. So at the end of the day, listen to your inner child. Your journey is far from over, so enjoy it. Look at things from a different lens and embrace that childlike wonder of the world. Because whenever you look at things anew, you never lose the novelty, and you can always be authentic. And that, folks, is the Fae Forecast. My name is Anikailani once again. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us here on the Common Tangent. Be gentle to yourselves and strive to be authentic. Thank you.
Hey everybody, welcome to Guess the Press with our guests here. This is my section that I love to do a fun and game. There's going to be a whole bunch of different random games that we pick in this instance here in this section. And let me explain to you the rules here. When you hear these games, there's going to be something really dumb, or it could be funny, or it could be something that could be very heartwarming to whatever we decide to do. The guests that I ask these questions with will have to come up with an answer they can answer right away, and then they can discuss what they think their right answer is, and then they have to give me whatever they come up with a consensus of figuring this out here. So let's start with this. I'm going to give you guys an option here. So I have a category of questions. I want to give you the options of the category. First category you can pick from is either music or animal.
I vote animal, only because that's my career field.
Okay. Here's how the game is going to work. So I want to give you 3 headlines, and one of them is real, and 2 of them are fake. You have to tell me which headline is real. So listen very closely, because these are funny. All right. Your first headline is Owl Crashes Town, Council Meeting, Sparks Debate About Wildlife Regulations. Feral goats take over small town playground, local kids evacuated. or black bear caught taking a dip in man's hot tub?
Oh, it's either the first or the second one because there's no feral goats.
You have to pick the real one. So there's 3 of them there. So you have to pick which one is real.
So an analogy, maybe like digging too deep into my career field, Annie, I think the owl one might not be accurate because most meetings are going to be during the day and that's when owls are sleeping.
Right.
Okay.
I'm leaning towards the bear in the hot tub thing just because I know how bears can be, considering I live in a very, very rural area. And it just, I wouldn't put it past a bear to decide, you know what, I'm just going to take a dip. Let me just chill for a minute.
I agree with that. But I will say the imaginary part of me, imagining a whole bunch of goats running through a playground and kids being very quickly swooped away for their safety is thoroughly entertaining.
I love it so much. And that's exactly why I just
really is. Just automatic.
Yes, exactly. So to not spoil it here, Florida wildlife officials had to trap and relocate a bear that took a dip in someone's hot tub and napped for hours in their hot tub. Residents in Punta Gorda, which I'm going to, if I pronounce these wrong, I apologize. Community woke up last Sunday to find an uninvited guest, a black bear with a taste for luxury. Whoever wrote this article is hilarious, by the way. The bear wanted a taste of luxury. That's hilarious. Landscapers spotted the bear running through a resident's backyard and called 911. When officers knocked on the homeowner's door to warn them, he thought they were joking. The bear took a bath in the man's hot tub, removed the cushions from the couch underneath the Lani or whatever it is, and took a 6-hour nap. I just gotta love those. Like when you come up with
timed.
Oh, they had it on.
They timed the nap.
They had it on camera. That's why I'm saying that. I think it's funny. All right, so I'm only going to do 2 of these per episode because I don't want to drag these on because these could be really funny. So since we're on the subject of animals, this next one's the category is border patrol or border control. I want to give you a sentence with a blank, and you guys have to fill in the blank. The headline is: U.S. man accused of smuggling 3 blank in his pants.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
Oh, I know. What do you think that this man smuggled 3 of in his pants?
Avocados.
Okay, we're on the subject of animals, though,
yes,
right? So
yes.
Ferrets.
Okay, so ferrets was like the first thing that came to my mind.
I love it.
But I'm gonna say fish.
Oh, fish! That's hilarious. So
in a baggie of water.
I mean,
like I'm already picturing this. My imaginary mind.
That is why I picked these because it definitely is funny. So the question again is: U.S. man accused of smuggling 3 blank in his pants. The story goes: a New York City man faces up to 20 years in prison for allegedly attempting to smuggle 3 large snakes across the U.S.-Canada border in his pants. Queens resident, and I won't say the name because I'll be nice, but age of 36 is accused of hiding 3 Burmese pythons while on a bus crossing into the U.S. at the Chaplin port of entry in New York State on 15 July of 2018. I love that. So the headline was a man accused of smuggling 3 reptiles in his pants. It was 3 pythons. Oh my gosh. Exactly. It's so sus.
They put yes, they put oh my god, just the wording of that 3 reptiles in his pants. Lord Jesus.
Yeah. Smuggle 3 large snakes. How big of pants do you have to have for that one? It just makes me laugh.
Maybe they were baby pythons.
Oh, they could have easily been. I mean, they have a picture, but I don't know if that means that's the picture of the snake that was actually in his pants or just a python itself. But yeah. It also says,
she said.
if convicted, he faces maximum of 20 years in prison or a $250,000 fine and 3 years of supervised release, which makes me laugh. Just these categories, and that's why I love these so much.
I picture this man. Yeah, I picture this man walking around. You remember those 90s parachute pants that were just gigantic?
Oh, yeah, like the hammer pants, MC Hammer pants.
Yeah. And then being like, instead of them being baggy and wavy, they're like tight, solid, but they're too big to be tight on his legs. And they're just packed solid with pythons.
Oh, my gosh. That I love these so much, and that's why I had to do this one as a game of this, because these could be really funny. And I'm gonna tell you this much right now: I have so many of these that you guys are gonna love, and stay tuned for a lot of more of these within the episode. So thank you so much for playing. I appreciate it. Let's throw it over to Soulskynn for the bright side.
Welcome to the bright side. I'm Soulskynn. This is a gentle space, a place to slow down, to take a breath, and to remember that even in difficult moments, there's still light to be found. Today, I want to share a story that stayed with me long after I heard it. Not because it avoided sadness, but because it chose joy anyway. This is a story of a dog named Simon. Simon was an 8-year-old rescue dog with a big heart and a very simple happiness. Every day, Simon and his human would take a walk through their neighborhood. They had a routine, a rhythm. They would stop at a donut shop and Simon would get a treat. But Simon didn't keep that treat just for himself. He shared it with every dog he met. Those walks slowly became something more than a routine. Dogs began to recognize him. People started to linger a little longer, and tails wagged a little harder. What began as a simple walk turned into a gathering, a small community built on kindness, presence, and connection. Then came the hard part. Simon was diagnosed with cancer. His body grew tired, his energy faded, his days became fewer. And the moment we all quietly fear began to draw closer. There's a moment in every difficult season where we're faced with a choice. We can retreat inward, we can brace ourselves for what's coming, or we can choose how we show up with the time we have left. Simon's people chose differently. They chose celebration. Instead of a quiet goodbye, they gathered his friends. They brought his favorite treats. They created a moment filled with love, warmth, and gratitude. It wasn't about pretending the sadness wasn't there. It was about honoring the life that had been lived. On his final day, Simon gave away every last treat, one by one. He didn't have more time, but he filled the time he had with generosity. And in doing so, he gave comfort not only to himself, but to everyone around him. And this is where the bright side lives. Not in denying pain, not in rushing past grief, but in choosing meaning right where we are. Sometimes the light doesn't come from fixing what's broken. Sometimes it comes from love shared freely, even when it hurts. Simon reminds us that even in our hardest moments, we still have something to give. Kindness, joy, presence. And often when we give those things, they find their way back to us. In unexpected ways, in quiet moments, in the comfort of knowing we showed up with an open heart. So today, I want to leave you with a question. Who, a person, a pet, or even a memory, has brought light into your life? And how can you share a small moment of joy today in their honor, or in their presence. It doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to be big. It just needs to be real. Because joy, when shared, has a way of multiplying, and light, when offered, has a way of lingering. Thank you for spending this time with me. Thank you for choosing softness in a world that can feel heavy. I'm Soulskynn, and this has been The Bright Side.
What a great episode. Thank you so much for listening to our debut episode. From our main common tangent of introductions to insights of Annie's Fae forecast, the chaos of my own Guess the Press, and the ending on a high note with Soulskynn's The Bright Side. We've covered a lot of ground today. On behalf of Soulskynn, Anikailani, and myself, thank you so much for pulling up a chair and being a part of the kickoff episode. If you want to keep the conversation going between episodes, you can find us on X at Common Tangent and over on TikTok at The Common Tangent. If you enjoyed the show, please take a second to rate and comment on Apple Podcasts, rate it as well as you can, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. It's a huge help in promoting the podcast into the algorithm and helping more people find their way to our family. We're so glad you joined us today. We'll see you in the next episode, and thank you for listening. This has been The Common Tangent.